Thank you, Commissioner.
Illinois is going to pay for it.
All right, Mr. Manager, Mickey's big hand is well past the 12.
I have 0900. Who did that? All right, Commissioners, I have two items we're going to talk about today. The first one, we did have our meeting with City of Wichita on Friday in reference to CAD and RMS system. So I'm going to let Rusty talk, giving a little after-action review on a way ahead there. And then the second issue is I'm going to let David Spears talk a little bit about the bids that came back last week on the preventive maintenance for the roads and a way ahead there. So without further ado, Rusty, if you want to.
So, back on. Okay, microphone. On March 2nd, we had a meeting with the City of Wichita regarding CAD and RMS, Records Management System, to determine whether the city had an interest in going jointly in an RFP to find a solution for records management for both the sheriff and the police department that works in conjunction with our CAD product, looking for a sole vendor or a single vendor that may provide modules for all of those needs. During that meeting on March 2nd, Commissioner Unruh and Chairman Dennis were present, and the mayor and the vice mayor were present along with staff to talk about that issue. So it was agreed on that date to have a follow-up meeting once the county's RFI returned on the CAD product. That was to come back on the 9th. However, it was extended for 1 week at the request of vendors. So when we got returns on the 16th, Alora Forshee, the Director of Emergency Communications, took a quick look at that. Didn't have a lot of time to analyze it, but she did look at the vendors. We had 11 vendors who responded with offers for solutions. So we were able to schedule a meeting with the City of Wichita last Friday, which was the 30th of March. At that meeting were a lot of the same folks, minus the elected individuals. And then the police department had additional representatives, and the sheriff brought a couple of his records management people who understand the technical side of those products. That meeting was more of a high-level meeting, again, to kind of touch base and determine whether there was a will for both sides to work together. During that conversation, the city did reiterate that they had already done some advanced work on this, that they've approached a product that they think they want to buy. They have not yet signed a contract, so there's still some room to work. Ultimately, they agreed to sit down with the county, and there are 2 of the 11 products that are going to be examined by both sides collectively together. So of the 11, both sides indicated for one reason or another that the product with its known qualities wouldn't work for one or the other. And so they narrowed it down to at least 2 of the 11 that they would collectively look at. So the way to go forward on this thing is sometime, hopefully this week. Laura was out the first couple of days of this week, but this week we will get some dates scheduled for demonstrations of those 2 products. The city has already examined one of those products and has some details that they collected from their examination of that product. So we'll go through that with them, but we are also going to have that company come in and give a demonstration for us. So we will work with the city to get those dates set, to examine those products, look at the demos, and sit down and look at the tech specs, see whether either one of those products will fit both of our needs, and if we can move forward together. If at the end of that process it's determined that one side or the other doesn't like either one of those products, then it'll have to be determined at that time whether we go separate ways as far as purchasing or not. Right now, the timeline, we hope to have that done in less than 90 days. The city indicated tentatively that a 90-day window is important to them. The chief indicated that, again, he's concerned about the volatility of their system. They also mentioned that they had a 90-day window to fulfill the time limit on their RFP to make a purchase or possibly have to go back out for bid again. Mr. Layton indicated that they could ask the vendor for an extension, but if we can get it done within 90 days, that's preferable. So that's what we're attempting to do is complete the product, the examination of those two products in less than 90 days, so that then we have a determination of which way to go forward. During that meeting, it was brought up briefly as to whether or not this would be a single host type system. If we went together, there would be one host. In other words, the city would host it or the county would host it on a server. The chief indicated that he did not prefer that method of hosting, but that again is not set in stone. It was just a preference that was mentioned last week, that he would like some autonomy with this system, so he wasn't necessarily in favor of a single host that required a board to help manage the administration of it. So that would be something to look at later on down the road if we decide that one of these two products works for both sides. So that's kind of the high-level overview of how the meeting went Friday and the way forward at this point. Any questions?
So where does he want to host it?
Again, that hasn't been determined. He just indicated a preference that there not be a governance board, so that if his entity wanted to change codes or something within that product, that they didn't have to go before a governor's board and get permission. So that's a preference that he stated, but again, that's not set in stone. We would need to evaluate these projects, and then if we decide to come together, that would be another discussion as to what the will of management and the council and commission are on that issue. So
I guess I'm confused on this governance board, because if it's going to be a joint product, there's going to have to be something that we work out, some kind of governance board to be able to manage a joint product.
Currently, we have a 911 advisory board, and it's law enforcement and fire, and he doesn't want anything like that, because that group, before things get policied or written down or delivered, that group has to, as a body, just come to consensus on it, and he does not want that for this records management system, because he wants to be able to not have to go through that type of process. So the best I can compare is he doesn't want another kind of 911 advisory board. Is that? That's
correct. So again, that would get into the technical aspect of information sharing. If there were two separate, if the city kept if we had the same vendor, but the city had theirs on their server, we had ours on our server, then would it be a matter of how our IT and their IT work together to ensure that those two systems still talk to each other and information was shared in a way that was a little more seamless. So.
Okay, but it still confuses me to some extent, because it's not just the Wichita Police Department and the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department. It's our 911, it's our DA, it's our judges. There's a whole host of people that are involved in this entire process. And so if you've got someone that's wanting to be separate over here and don't want to work as some kind of with a governance board that oversees this whole process, then the whole thing starts falling apart, it looks to me like. I'm totally confused of what the police chief wants.
I think at this point, the way forward presently is to review the two products, and if we collectively decide that there's one of the two products that we can both agree on, then that would be the next conversation again at a higher level to determine the way forward, whether it's a shared host or a separate host. So.
Okay, but they've still got to talk to one another.
Yes, sir.
If we have a 911 call and someone gets police department that gets involved in it, and later on the sheriff's department is involved in that same individual, then we need to be able to cross that information back and forth. And then we need the DA to be able to pick up that information later on. And we need the judges to be able to see that information. There's a whole host of folks. And if we have a separate organization over here that's now suddenly writing code, and it doesn't interface with all of the different organizations that they have to in Sedgwick County, then we've got two separate systems.
That's the status quo for what we have now.
Well, what we explained what we asked for was, let's do the analysis on the hardware first. Let's see what's in the realm of possibility on what kind of a shared system would look like. The discussions on governance board and how we do that is a follow-up discussion that needs to be included when we say, this is our recommendation and this is what we want to go with. In order to make this happen, we need to have a governance board. So it's either a yes or a no, but that is a decision point. But let's look at the realm of possibility of what the hardware will look like now and what we can get some agreement on, and then we will ask the question on the governance board. The other thing I requested of him was that even if, say, we do not agree, in the end our ships sail apart from each other, I asked that they would still delay signing their contract until we figure out what we're going to use that would save them money in the end, instead of having to come back next year to rewrite a new contract to help fit into the system that we ultimately choose. They can say yay or nay, but that is an alternate plan that then in the end, if you don't go with what we think is the best choice, delay signing your contract until we actually choose a system. Either way, they're going to have to extend their service contract that ends in June 30th. They're going to have to extend it. Even if they choose something today, they would have to extend it for another year. So it's not going to hurt them. They're still going to have to deal with this fragile system, and all that was discussed on Friday.
Okay. Well, keep us up to speed. Do any of the commissioners have questions about this? Commissioner Unruh.
Does the sticking point in these discussions seem to be a technical issue, a procedural issue, or just a turf issue?
I think it's a combination of all of those. When we started the discussion on Friday, it was really as if the decision was made. We're just passing this information off to you. Any alternates that we would talk about, it was somewhat contentious. I had to mention, make a comment in order to kind of tamp it down a little bit. Bob Layton interjected at that point, and we kind of started talking more with each other instead of them talking at us. Came more collaborative, and I think by the end of it, everybody was more in a collaborative spirit than the way the meeting started. But I think it is. They specifically mentioned in the meeting that they have spent a year and a half. We've done all this research. These are the best choices. And when we went down the list, it was very clear that there are reasons why, on most of them, that they could come up with that didn't work for them.
There are reasons.
There was reasons why each one of those that came out in our RFI, each one of the bidders, there is a reason why that software would not work for them. They have a table where they basically analyzed most of the bidders that were on our list. They have already looked at. There are only a few that they have not looked at, and so those are the ones that we're going to be looking at here in the next 90 days. And there's also another one that the sheriff still would like to look at because we haven't had a chance. So we're going to actually bring them in too and do a demo, even though the city has already analyzed them.
Well, as a system that they seem to be most partial to, does it not work for us?
It does not work for us
Okay.
because it does not have a CAD interface.
Okay. So who's in charge over there? Is it the chief of police or is it the county manager?
City manager.
The city manager.
The city manager is in charge. He did keep the collaborative nature. He did keep the ball moving down the road, and that is why we're going to be analyzing it the next 90 days. If the rest of the staff had to choose, we would enter the discussion on Friday because they had in their minds already sailed. The ship has sailed. They had mentioned they already bought a couple of, or had already contracted with a couple of maintainers for the niche system. They have already chosen these people. So in their minds, their ship has sailed. It wasn't until the end of the discussion Friday where they were a little more collaborative. But to me, I left the meeting feeling like this was going to be an exercise. We were going to go through the analysis, but in the end, they have already made up their mind.
Well, let's not get so far down the line in this exercise that if we need intervention from the electeds to go talk to their electeds, that we don't get the police chief and the city manager making decisions that we can't recover from without us talking to them.
The key thing to keep in mind is exactly what I said, though. Even if you do not like whatever system we choose, or you cannot change your mind to go towards a more collaborative system, they still I mean, for the best interest of in their fiduciary responsibility to the citizenry, they need to wait until we actually pick our system, because then they can write their contract with and say this is the type of interface and build that into their contract instead of having to renegotiate that and redo it next year and spend more money to do it. So it really would benefit them to wait until we choose it. We're on the fast track for it now. We're looking at it. And I figure it'll take us about 6 months to do it. But 6 months isn't a long time to wait when they have a solution now. They have a contract in place for maintenance. There is nothing that is saying that system is going to crash today. So there is no reason why they can't wait that 6 months.
Okay, well, just don't get us to the point where we can't recover. As we can always, the sheriff is definitely supportive of this. The DA is definitely supportive of what our efforts are. Our 911 folks. So we need to make sure that we don't get to the point where we have a crisis that we can't recover by having those folks and the commission visit with the mayor.
The sheriff and the DA were there as well.
Good.
On Friday.
Okay. Commissioner Ranzau.
I think you may have kind of spoke to this, but of the 9, there were 9 of them that were kind of rejected then, right? Out of those 9, how many of those would fit our needs that we'd be interested in looking at if the city wasn't saying no to them?
There are a couple of products that our emergency communications director would still like to evaluate, and we will probably still evaluate those, but we will evaluate the 2 collectively first and have those scheduled for later on.
Well, do we, for those other 2, do we know what the objections are with the city, with the ideas? Can we somehow take a look at their objections and see if they're
Yeah, we can.
it can be worked around or fixed or alleviated or something, or if there might be perceptions of problems that really aren't there, or whatever. I don't know.
They actually gave their analysis sheet that had all the vendors that they've looked at, and they have it partitioned based off a functional review with a recommendation at the end. So they have given us that sheet for us to look at, and then they will be, of course, on the team that will actually look at it. The one that I thought we had talked about before that I thought was a slam dunk was going to be a part of the review. In the end, they didn't like. So that isn't one of the ones that they even wanted to look at, but yet the sheriff still wants to look at it. So we are still going to review that one and bring it in. But what's odd about the niche system to me is that it is almost one of the least collaborative ones with CAD in either, was it RMS or JMS? There are 2 of them where they don't even have real interface with, and it seemed like that was the only one that really didn't have the more of the interface. It was more of a sole system, you know, a unilateral type of system.
It would seem to me that even if the city wanted a certain degree of autonomy, that going with the same software would still be advantageous, because that interface would be less difficult, I would think.
Yes.
Right. Yes. But I think we're going back to really why we're here. I think it's the chief that really wants autonomy. He really wants that standalone type of system that he has somewhat more of control over, instead of more collaborative type of a system. And hopefully by doing this collaborative exercise in the end, it will stand out that more of a collaborative system would work in the benefit of all, is what the hope is.
Yeah, but I would hate to go too, I mean, I think we should be, if we have to, we need to accommodate, I think, their desire for autonomy if we can get them to use the same system, because then
Right.
at least costs are less, and you still have the potential for collaboration later on.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's,
The key is the
even if
back.
initially they act like they don't want to, but if we go two completely different systems like you're talking about, that really just,
The backbone is the CAD,
yeah.
and then you can feed off of that and tie into an RMS system and a JMS system. But the thing with the niche is it does not have that CAD. So you're taking that out of the equation, which for us is the backbone of whatever system we need to choose. And so that is kind of the strange part of this conversation. And in order for the collaborative nature of RMS and JMS and even the DA system to even have that discussion, the backbone should be CAD. Which if you selected anyone on there that had that as a backbone, the one they chose does not have that, which is why we're where we are. And so that's what, for us, needs to be priority for us. So that's where we are.
Well, and now I guess what I'm saying, we need to find a different product that will give them all the same perceived advantages of that other one, even if they want to operate it separately and have complete autonomy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I would think, and then, I mean, that's the second best scenario, right?
Right.
If you kind of see
Right.
three different scenarios, and we don't want the last one.
Right.
Type deal, so.
But complete autonomy causes problems, because if our 911 with their computer-aided dispatch dispatches someone, all that information then gets automatically populated into the police department's computer or the sheriff's department computer. Then when they bring them over to the jail and they book them, we're not having to sit there and retype all that information back into the computer when they're going into the jail. Then we can transfer that information to the DA. It can't be autonomous.
I get that. What I mean is complete autonomy with the same system or compatible systems initially is better than complete autonomy with two incompatible. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because then, as you move forward, exactly what you're saying, the need for more coordination may develop and it'll be easier. Like I say, that's the second best scenario, but I think I deal with it.
Well, there's a reason why the chief made the remark on he doesn't want a governance board. And I think it has a direct correlation to the actual system that they chose. Is there another system that gets us close to what he's wanting, but yet does have that collaborative backbone built into it? And that's where our analysis group is going to be trying to focus on.
Very good. Further questions? All right. Thanks for the update. Again, don't let us get too far down the line where we can't recover someplace.
Ready for the next subject?
Mr. Spears.
Okay. Last week, we bid out 5 miles of pavement for 1 mile in each commission district. We're real happy with the bids. We did alternatives. In other words, it allowed more bidders to come in and bid because we allowed for the base, cement treated base, we allowed either liquid or the dry. So that put more contractors in play. And then for the surface, we allowed either hot mix, 2 inches of hot mix, or 3 inches of cold mix. And that put more contractors into play. We tried to make it a leveling playing field best we could, and I think we did that. We had 5 bidders, Andale Construction, Bob Burkamp Construction, Corneo and Sons, Coughlin Company, and Flint Hills. as it turned out, the low bid was Flint Hills Materials at $739,455. So it's just a little under $150,000 a mile, which we're real happy with. Now, everybody's got to understand this is not your super duper highway that we're building here. These are low traffic roads, and just basically you're getting rid of the gravel and the dust and going to a minimal type pavement. But it bid Tuesday, went to bid board Thursday, was approved. It'll be on the agenda tomorrow. Then after that, we will do 2 CIP amendments, and we will have those finished today. There's a CIP committee meeting tomorrow, and we're going to take them to that. The committee will vote on those, and then we'll give them to the manager for him to sign off on, and then we'll get them on the agenda for you to vote on. Those amendments will be 2 extra miles in Commissioner Ramsaw's district, and then a half a mile in Commissioner Howell's district for down by Cook Airfield. Now, Commissioner Howell, the Cook Airfield will be a little different because they already have a base on there, so it will more or less be just the surface part on that. So the unit price will be lower on that than on Commissioner Ramsaw's would be the full thing. So that's where we're at. Be glad to answer any questions if you have any, but we're real thrilled with the bids. The competition, I think, helped put the price down, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, so what's the winning bid or the lowest bid?
Flint Hills. Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, but what
$739,450.
type of material or process?
Sorry. They will do the dry cement base and 2 inches of hot mix.
But I don't want dry. You've told me it's not as good. I don't think we should settle for dry.
Well, we accepted a bid from Andale, and they were $939,988, the high bid. So, I mean, we made it as fair as we
Are
could.
they the only one that does the wet one?
Yes.
But this is a combination, it's not just dry. It's a
I
dry-
know, but you told me the dry isn't near as good. It can't sustain the same.
But that's dry standalone, that's not dry with a 2-inch.
It's the base that matters. It's the base that matters. I think we need to think. It's not just. I wouldn't want to think it's a mistake.
This is essentially the process that we have historically followed. Is that correct?
No, it's different. We changed this year to a more competitive process. We were using pretty much the Andale proprietary process that they have a patent on with their super slurry.
But
And
we've
that-
only been doing that super slurry the last 2 or 3 years.
Right, the
Previous
last,
to that,
2 or 3, last couple of times with Commissioner, the 5 miles we did, yes.
previous to that, though, this process you have now is what we were using.
No, what we did before that was, we did it with coal mix out of our pug mill.
But this is superior to that. Would you say?
I'd say it's equal to the 2 inches of hot mix. What we did out of our pug mill, I think was pretty good. But the pug mill is a problem now. It just breaks down all the time. It's 30 years old, so we had to go to something different. The other thing with that, Westar came out and said they're going to start charging us a higher rate on the pug mill because of certain things it doesn't have on it. So we more or less we have shut down our pug mill now.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to get at, some comfort zone of the quality of what you're putting down.
Right.
I mean, are you satisfied that it's a quality of a road that'll last at least 6 to 10 years?
Well, you will have to do something to this again in 5 years and put another overlay on it, another lift on top of that, since it's only got 2 inches. But the thing is,
Our
they are
program now
low.
is 5 years or 6 years.
5 or 6 years, yeah. They are low traffic roads. They're not like our average road in the county gets 2,500 cars a day. That's average. These roads are well under 500, some under 100 cars a day. So it doesn't have to be built as well with very few trucks. So these roads that we do like this were never intended to be. If you want to do a road right, it's $1 million a mile. Okay? So this is not the grade of that whatsoever.
Did you say this dry mix is roughly equivalent to the cold mix we used to do?
When we did cold mix from our pug mill, we didn't even do the base. We didn't put anything in. We just laid it on top of the
He
road.
asked the question if it's better, and I thought you said it was. Is it better than
Then what we did,
the cold mix?
I'm going to say it's pretty equal, because we would put like 5 inches of cold mix on top of the road, but we did not do the base. We did not have anything at our disposal to do the base under the 5 inches. This is going to do the base underneath it. And the cold mix roads are never intended to be permanent, never. And we got about 150 miles of those out there right now. It was always intended to, at some point, replace them with a $1 million a mile road, but that's not happened so far.
What's the lifespan of the old cold mix that we used to do?
The lifespan would be 4 to 7 years, roughly. Depends on the traffic, the type of traffic on it.
But this slurry seal is supposed to be better than the cold mix.
Slurry seal, the
Better-
nice
better-
thing about slurry seal
better
is
than the
they
dry
put a
mix.
great base under it, and it goes down like 10 inches, and they have a patent on that. Now, the dry mix, the people that do the dry mix will argue theirs is just as good. It's debatable. It's debatable. I've seen tests on both ways.
But you're telling me it's equal to the cold mix.
I'm telling you that we tried to make it as fair as we could on the
No,
bid.
stop. I'm asking you a question. You said it's the same as a cold mix. Why would we spend it? We're trying to get something that's better than the cold. That was a whole, those replacement system is
Right.
a replacement system with the cold mix.
We
wanna
did
replace
that.
it with something that's equal. We want something that's better.
And as the years went by, that price got higher and higher. The bid got higher and higher and higher. And so we have a budget we have to meet, and that became very tough to do as the price went up. Now that we're doing this, we have competition, and
But it's not as good.
it's
But
But for us, Commissioner, remember, we stopped using the pug mill. So in the past, you would do the commissioner's 5 miles of roads with the pug mill and the cold mix and the aggregate that he has in the yard. But because we didn't buy a new pug mill, and we shut that one down because the preventive maintenance on the pug mill was starting to get astronomical, we started contracting that out. And so that's what he did. He went out and got a contract for essentially what he's giving up in the cold mix process. So yes, you're correct that it's, he's replacing the cold mix with this, which is almost an equal to type of scenario. If we wanted to do the 5 miles with something of higher quality, then again, we'd have to spend a lot more money to do that.
well, yes, we want to do it with. That was the whole purpose of the replacement system, was to get something better in there. Yes, it's going to cost more, but it's not going to cost $1 million. It'll cost $1 million for 5 miles instead of $1 million for 1 mile. And these roads out there don't need to be $1 million a mile, but they need to be. There's no sense in going back to a cold mix quality road. To me, the spending. I mean, you want to save money, but you don't want to do it to the point that you're going backwards. And from what we've been doing the last few years, we're going backwards as far as quality. But we're spending $1 million instead of $5 million if we go with the slurry seal, and you're saving $4 million, but you're getting a better quality. And I think it's going to be a mistake if we go down that road.
Our first decision point for the commission is on the approving the 5 miles,
it's on the agenda tomorrow, the bid that was bid last week.
and then later on we'll have these CIP amendments to deal with.
Yes, we'll go to the CIP committee tomorrow, and then to the manager, and then put it on the agenda.
All right.
And there will be 2 separate CIP amendments.
I want my mile done in the slurry seal. I want quality. The other commissioners wanted lower quality, that's fine.
What does a mile with slurry seal cost?
Well, with this, their bid was about $940,000. So
Right.
that divided by 5, whatever that number is, $1 million divided by 5 would be 200,000. So it's under 200.
And if you did it with your pug mill, what would it cost you to do it with your pug mill?
Got to
Per-
buy a pug mill first.
I
It's-
know, that's my second question. I want to know the first question.
It's less than all of these.
What's it cost
Because-
per mile to do it with a pug mill?
I'm going to say about 100,000.
Cost $100,000 a mile to do it with a pug mill.
If you had
And
a pug mill.
That's our standard. That's what we always did.
And then I was going to change that around later. We have, over the years, built up probably 100,000 tons of asphalt chips that as you rebuild roads, you can grind off the chips and then store those. And there's a big value to that, probably about $20 a ton. And so what we wanted to do was get a pug mill and a laydown machine and run the chips through the pug mill, rejuvenate them, and go out and lay those chips that we already had, which would be even less than the $100,000 a mile. But
Okay. And
getting the pug
it's-
mill was a problem.
It's been a year since we've talked about pug mills. What was a reasonably priced pug mill, not Cadillac, I mean a reasonably priced pug mill cost?
$3 million.
$3 million. But it ends up costing us $100,000 a mile to
It
lay.
would pay off in 3 years, comparing us laying down the chips versus Andale's price.
But keep in mind, you're getting a cold mix road, which is not as good as a
But
slurry
that's our
seal.
standard. That's what we've said all along was what we gave for the commissioner's mile every 2 years.
Well,
That was the standard.
no,
road.
then we stopped, and we started doing the cold mix replacement deal because
But that's because our pug mill went to heck.
no, that's because Public Works tells us, you know, we got 150 miles of stuff that's supposed to be temporary, and we got to replace it with something better, and this was a better alternative, and so we started replacing it with that. We could start up the plug mill right now if we wanted, but you're still going to put down cold mix roads that don't last as long as hot mix or something with a base, and the selling point was this process had a solid base. It would last better, especially out in these rural areas. We did this test one right out there by Clearwater. This would be better. So we said, okay, let's do it. Let's start replacing them and using this process for the new thing. It's not about whether we want a pug mill or not. You get a pug mill, you can still get the same old process. It has to be replaced with something later on.
But the unintended consequence, everything you say is right, but the unintended consequence was that the price of that, as the vendor found out that's what we're going to use, his product, there's nobody else that has it. And so the price started going up. And it was not fair to the county because the price went up tremendously. And so we can't really afford that.
Well, first of all, we knew when we first got it that it would go up, and I understand that that's an issue, but it's still 20% of what it would be for doing it, you know, $1 million a mile. And to say we can't afford it, that's not true. We can afford it.
No, what doesn't make sense is spend $1 million a mile on a road that he said we might have 50 trucks or cars a day drive down. That's not anything that taxpayers would think even is halfway sensible.
Right.
We don't spend $1 million a mile for a road that does not get traffic on it. So if we can go out and put it down ourselves at $100,000 a mile for a road that doesn't have much traffic, makes a whole lot more sense to me.
Right, but you're going to back up to the same point that brought to us that we got 150. We can't keep these up. We can't keep these up. So we need to find a different way to do it, and we need to replace. The whole intent was to replace all 150 miles of cold mix because it was never intended to last that long. Yes. Are you going to do traffic counts on all 5 miles?
We haven't, but we could easily, but we
Why-
pretty much
why
know.
did I think that you did in the past before we did these, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, the township roads are pretty similar with, because people go to the paved roads to drive. You build them, they will come. So, you know, I know they're under 500. They could be under 100. That's what I'm saying. No, but we have not counted them.
You're probably going to get a lot more questions tomorrow.
I'll be looking forward to it.
I have a couple questions. The dry base, how thick is that again?
That's a good question. I don't have that.
Okay.
I don't have that
Maybe you'll
with-
get that answer for us tomorrow. The question I might have is,
Oh, I'm sorry, I do. 10 inches.
okay, so that sounds pretty good to me, and they claim this is as good as the Andale product. We don't have any roads in the county that we can go look at that dry base and see what the road, actually see the road or know how it's performing. We have never done this before, have we?
Yes.
We have done it.
We have not. Years ago, when we took all of our bad roads, the mile line roads, and fixed them, we used cement. Well, we didn't use cement. We use fly ash treated, but it's almost the same thing. In fact, the state uses our specs now for that.
And was that 10-year? That was a 10-inch base as well? when we did that?
Yes.
And how's that road performing?
Those roads are still here. We have the same roads here that we had in 1982 that we built because we do the preventive maintenance then.
Yeah. Can you tell us where those roads are so we can go look at them? I'd like to go look at them.
They're all around.
Okay.
Yes, almost all of them that we've redone. All that we've redone have been done that way. It's the main mile line roads.
Okay. Well, they're pretty good.
They're real good.
I guess
They've done with this same process. You're saying no, it's something similar.
It's used fly ash, not cement. This is cement, not fly ash. But it's basically, it's almost the same thing. But at least you're doing the base underneath the pavement. Yes. Very simple. And it was dry. It was not liquid. It was dry. They didn't have the liquid at that time.
Well, just from my perspective, I think 5 inches of cold mix on top of dirt doesn't sound nearly as good as 10 inches of dry concrete with 2 inches of hot mix. I'm not a road expert, but
Right.
I'm just telling you that what you're talking about now sounds like a better
You're
product.
correct, because you build a road from the bottom up, not the top down.
And so, I guess I'd like to say, when I first got here, I think you told us our cold mix was 125 a mile. That's what you said back then. Maybe cheaper than that now. I don't know if we had a pug mill, but so I anticipated this 5 mile program costing $625 a year, or every other year when we do this, $625 when that budget item comes up is the number I've been using in my head for 4 years now. And to go from $625 to $739 and not have to have a pug mill, that's pretty reasonable. I think we're in the ballpark, and I'm very pleased with that. And before that CIP amendment gets discussed in the process, I do have new information I need to present. I can't present all of that right now because I don't have permission to do so yet. But there is information that is relevant to that CIP amendment. I need to make sure that I can share with whoever's going to be hearing that. They need to know. They need to know what I know before they make decisions regarding that amendment, whether it should go forward or not. So I need to make sure I'm aware of that process, so I'm presenting information at the right time to make sure that the decision makers.
No matter what the CIP committee decides, whether they vote it up or down, it's still going to come to the commission.
I understand that, but I want them to understand everything I understand so
Sure.
that they make the right decision. Anyway, all right. Well, anyway, I think we ought to try this. I think it seems like a good product to try. And as you say the road will last 5 to 10 years. Let's just say, but we don't just let the road deteriorate and fall apart. We don't tear it back out again. We maintain that.
Right.
And so I think our history is we don't want to have to spend a lot of money maintaining that road, but just because it lasts 5 to 10 years, what we're saying 5 to 10 years before we have to do something like an overlay of some sort.
No question.
So it's not like the road's going to go away. We're going to continue to be committed to that road once we do it. It's a county road. We're going to maintain it forever.
It will change from a township road to a county road, and we'll have a resolution for all 5 miles.
Sure. So whether we use a dry mix or a cold mix or whatever, or the slurry seal, to me that's less important than the fact that we're we're trying to minimize our costs, but we're committed to that road going forward.
Because when something goes wrong, we get a phone call, we got to go take care of it, and we try to take care of them before we get the phone call.
And then finally, I would say road counts. If you're picking the worst road in your district, it probably isn't going to have a lot of. The only reason you go down that road is because you have to. It's a horrible road, but in my opinion, the road I'm picking this year is going to connect a paved road to another paved road. I think the traffic counts are going to shoot through the roof once this is done. But right now, the traffic counts are probably very, very low.
Yeah, you have 87th from Greenwich to Webb.
But we can't compare that traffic count, our traffic count now, with what's going to happen after we finish this.
Also, Commissioner O'Donnell, his mile is on Hillside, and it fills in the last mile of Hillside. We've been going for years all the way down, and it'll hook to the county line on the south end, which also goes to then the casino is nearby. I think you'll see a big buildup of cars on that road.
So those traffic counts aren't reasons to make decisions where we should.
It will
we know our
change.
districts. We know where people are going to want to travel, and I think that we understand that aspect of this. And so we're building these roads because we know it's important to the traveling public how that would be used by people in our districts. So, all right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further questions?
Yeah, sorry, I got to get
Commissioner
back to this
Ansari.
quality because I got to get. Maybe I'm the only one confused about this, okay? But I need a straight answer about the quality, okay? Because in my mind, we had the cold mix, and then we had the slurry seal. And the slurry seal, I've always been told, is better than the cold mix, okay?
Yes.
It does a base, it's wet, it's great, okay? And it's more cost effective than $1 million a mile. So, and for these types of roads that we're doing, it's great. You tried to say that you said that this dry one is equal to the cold mix. Okay, well that bothers me. Okay, but then Mr. Howell says something about you've got 10 inches dry. That seems like that would be better, and you said yes. I mean, I'm trying to.
Okay, I'm not
Do you
good
see
at
where I'm a
it.
little confused? I want to know where quality-wise this dry mix thing is with respect to cold mix, because that's the key factor. If it's as
Okay, the people that do dry, we're talking about the base now, not the surface, the base. The
Right.
contractors that do the dry we've talked to them, and they've come in, they've brought reports from Terracon and other places,
Right.
and they say, ours is just as good as Andale's. So that's what they're saying. It's just as good.
I understand what are you saying? I know what you've told me in the past. What are you saying?
So tomorrow, Commissioner, what we can do for the OCC meeting is we'll bring in an actual chart, and we'll tell you what the cold mix is in terms of inches, base, all of the information that you're requesting, and also the dry mix and the slurry seal, and do some type of comparative table or chart or something to put up on the screen to give you a good analysis on what you're getting out of those three different options.
Okay, I'm not just concerned about the inches. I'm talking about the quality and the long-term benefit, which
Got it.
I'm not sure we have good objective data, but I've been told in the past that there's some differences here. And that's all I want to make sure is that I'm okay with spending a little bit more money if the product that we're going to get is significantly better than cold mix, which I think is what we have been getting. In the past, we did a test run with one of these before we went doing it, but I'm just getting mixed answers here, and I know what I've been told in the past repeatedly about the dry mix. So the price difference between those two is a couple $100,000 or $150,000 for 5 miles.
Well,
And based on what I've been told in the past, in my mind, I think that that's worth it. You're getting better quality.
I know last year when the pug mill, we did not have consensus for the pug mill, to buy a new pug mill. We went out, we truly did. I think David, in terms of trying to choose what the 5 miles would be used this for, we were going to contract out what we were going to do with the pug mill. So it was a cold mix to whatever that new product was to replace what we were doing with the cold mix. So we weren't looking for a slurry seal type of solution. We were looking for an equal solution to what we were getting out of the pug mill.
Well, that's not what I'm looking for as a commissioner of my district.
Well,
I think this product that you've sold me on this slurry seal is a significant step above cold mix, and for these outside areas that we're putting these on is a better long-term solution because of the base.
That's true.
Okay, and that's why
Andale-
we were willing to spend
Yeah,
more money
I'll say
on
it a
that
different way.
because-
Maybe this will be
Because
better.
I was always told that the continual maintenance of that cold mix was going to add up and it's not cost effective.
Right, okay. But the alternate bid here is not our coal mix. The alternate bid also does the base, just like Andale does.
I got that, but you just told me that they're equal to cold mix, and in the past you've
Andale
not talked well
Andale-
about the dry mix. You said it's not as good as the
Andale's product
Sorry,
is
sir.
better than our coal mix,
Yes.
okay? Because, the main reason, because when we do coal mix with the pug mill, we don't do the base. We just go out and lay it down on the road. Andale does the base.
I know.
And on this bid, the alternate bid also does the base, but it's dry instead of wet.
I know, and in the past you've told me that you don't think the dry mix is as good as the wet mix.
That's
I
my
understand what they're saying.
that's my opinion.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people that have the opposite opinion. And
David,
if you want to get
David,
into just
David.
one more thing. I'm sorry. Just one more thing. The debate is that the liquid cement covers every particle in the base, whereas the dry, they claim, does not. If you mix the dry enough, you can get it on the particles. So it's a thing you have to really watch when you're doing, more so than the wet. We're starting to get down into the
All right,
weeds too
David,
much now.
David.
But I'm going
Hold
to
it.
But
stop.
what
Hold
I'm
it,
saying is
hold it,
I'm believing what you told me in the past more than the vendor, okay?
All right, we're in a do loop, and we've already had a recommendation by the manager that he's going to have a chart for us tomorrow that's going to explain all of this stuff so that we can go through it. And at that time, we're going to be making a decision one way or the other. But we're not going to get out of this do loop today unless we've got a chart that describes all of this.
We'll try to get you that before tomorrow, so you guys can study it and have questions ready.
Good. All right. Do we have questions other than about roads?
Well, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up today, was to keep it from, keeping you from having questions tomorrow where we couldn't vote on
We
it.
might have to cater in lunch. In other
Yeah,
words.
yeah. As long as, I'm going to afford that.
Okay. All right. Do you have anything else, Mr. Manager?
No, I'm rounds complete.
Round's complete. Mr. Yost.
I do have one thing. I've got a new attorney I'd like to introduce. Mike North retired, and we need someone for litigation. So we have hired Mr. Kevin Stamper. Kevin, if you could stand up for everybody to see you. Kevin grew up on a family farm in Plainville, Kansas. Is that Rush County? Rooks County, all right. It was out there somewhere. And he attended the University of Kansas and then Washburn Law School, graduated from both with honors, came to Wichita and practiced law. He's been a trial attorney for 20 years, has done dozens of jury trials and probably hundreds of bench trials, and is a very accomplished trial attorney, and we're very fortunate to have him. So please welcome Kevin Stamper, and anybody wants to come over and say hi to him, that'd be great. You'll be talking to him quite a bit, I'm sure.
Is he a good mediator?
He had a mediation last Friday, and we got a good result, so I think so, yes.
We may need him tomorrow, too.
I'll have him come and sit on the front row.
All right, commissioners, what else? Do you have anything else?
I have a question. Last summer, Workforce Alliance, with a lot of promotion from the mayor of City of Wichita, they talked about interns, and some of the industries, companies around town hired a lot of interns. City of Wichita, I think, took 4 or 5. I just wonder, do we have any mechanism, any way where we could put on a couple of interns, either, I don't know, in somebody's office, whatever interns do, about 20 hours a week.
Is this in addition to the 3 we do now?
You're talking about high school.
Yeah, this is high school. They call them interns. That might not be the best way, but these are just high school kids that they're out looking for jobs, and they come through Workforce Alliance, and they're looking for 20 hours a week, and if we have, pardon me?
Is it for the summertime?
This is just summertime, yeah, it's a couple of months, about 2 months max. So anyway, I just throw it out to see if in any departments or anywhere in the organization that we might know of a way that we could afford that and utilize these people.
We did change our HR policies as was last year to allow for high schoolers to be, I thought.
It's in the process. It takes a while to work through all policies.
Oh, we haven't already done it?
Right. It's not there yet.
Oh, we haven't?
Will we be there by summer?
It's not.
Well, I think last year they were talking about, why don't you take on 5 or 10, and now I got contacted to take on a couple, so.
I'll get back to you, but I think it's approved already.
You think it's what?
I think we've already approved that already.
Okay.
Our policy didn't allow us to hire anyone under 18. And
Oh,
I
okay.
thought we had changed that, but maybe we never completed it, but I thought we had.
All right, well, I can let, as soon as you let me know, we'll let Keith Lang know and see if there's.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Are there any
Colonel
safety,
Powell was nodding his head that they might be able to use somebody, so.
any safety requirements that we got to worry about? Go ahead, Colonel Powell.
We would certainly accept one. We, as a rule, during the summer, we usually at least probably put on at least 2 every summer that are college stuff, so that the age requirements. I think to go back there, we can certainly entertain that.
We know you some answers, and we'll get back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
There's 2 components of it, but there's a funding piece of that too. The Workforce Alliance fund that last year for the city. They just worked there, done that.
Well, what they did is they asked the company, either the private company or the organization, to pay for them. If for some reason they can't, they come up with some money to help supplement it, yeah.
So, okay, policy issue and funding issue.
Right.
But could they work in someplace like our fleet management or IT or something like that?
We owe you some answers.
Wherever we could use it, yeah.
Okay.
And we have to be very careful about the type of work that we do, just for safety and legal reasons.
Okay. Well, we look forward to the answers. Anything else? Anything? Okay. How are we doing on getting our mutual aid agreements figured out?
That's still a process. We have people building the report right now. Supposed to get back with them around the 12th of April to look at progress on that report. So pulling the data together, getting it written, hopefully we'll hear after the
Okay. Well, I look forward to something here in the near future on that. Okay. All right. Anything from the staff? Nothing? Anything from the electeds? Sheriff's office? Nothing?
Thank you. I did thank you. Chair, this weekend on Saturday is the law enforcement recognition Saturday, and I know that there's a parade planned for that Wichita. It starts in the morning, and there's also some various community events in the downtown area. Typically, the last couple of years since its inception, this gets bigger and bigger every year. So, pleasure to be there, of course, to have our sheriff's office recognized as a lot of other, not only law enforcement, just a lot of public safety in general.
Good. You working with Kate to get the word out?
Sure, I guess that's working.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the rest of the staff? All right, Mr. Manager, you have anything else? Okay. Thank you all for being here. We're dismissed, I guess.